timer and Discord message. Good. Okay. I haven't done my voice exercises yet today, so my voice is probably going to sound a little bit more gravelly. I think also my voice just naturally sounds pretty gravelly, especially in this transitory phase where I am trying to feminize my voice with repeated exercises and routines and such. Anyways, welcome back. Happy New Year, everybody. Holy shit. It has already been such a year for the politics individuals such as myself. And it's January 5th. It is 4 days into the year, if that. I was like, I'm gonna go sleep for my birthday. The world, I don't know about that. Yeah, well, fucking okay. Why don't I just dive right in? We'll start with the Venezuela shit. That happened when I was sleeping. I'm on East Coast time. So when was it? It was like going from January 2nd to 3rd, or maybe even 1st to 2nd. It was like a couple days ago at this point that the Trump administration carried out a military raid on Venezuela. Happened right as your birthday started. Happy birthday. Sorry this had to happen, all this shit on your birthday. But yeah, it was at like 3 a.m. apparently, or something like that. That this happened. They raided Venezuela and kidnapped Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. And he's now they hauled his ass to New York City where he's going to stand trial, right? And I don't intend to linger on the whole bit about him being criminal or not, because he's a world leader. It's been known to happen, and Venezuela's kind of it's a little bit like Syria light, in that it wasn't a particularly well-faring state to begin with, even just among authoritarian states. But like that doesn't. I guess the United States just decided that the Monroe Doctrine is back. Congress doesn't matter. International law doesn't matter. And evidently every other country decided that too, because none of them have condemned the United States for this, except for Spain. Spain and other like South American countries are the only ones that have condemned America for engaging in such behavior. Every other country is either cucked to America, is too unstable to care, or is Russia or China, in which case they're taking notes that like, oh shit, okay, so there's like no, so we could just have Taiwan now, like we could just do that. Hispanic Alliance, it seems. Yeah, the I'm all here for the Hispanic Century, actually. New South American bloc, La Federación from fucking Call of Duty Ghosts, which literally just has the EU flag. Don't know if anybody remembers that game. Wow, it's this evil federal state in South America that engages in like torture sometimes. Damn, that's crazy. It's literally the US, except better. This news story is so hectic. I don't know the full details. I don't have the full details in front of me to run through. What I do know is that Maduro was kidnapped. We don't care for Maduro, but we care even less for this, because this is even more neocon warmongering bullshit. Yeah, it's La Federación in Call of Duty Ghosts is the United States, except they have healthcare, and speak Spanish mostly instead of English mostly. Maduro was kidnapped. Neocons are rock hard right now. First and foremost being Marco Rubio. He was the mastermind behind this, evidently. which makes sense because he has a raging hate boner for all of Latin America, particularly any leaders that are left of center. Uh, and I will come back to that because there's another country that they have in their sight line. In the meantime, in Venezuela, the vice president is going to be running the country, quote unquote, running the country. Really, it's the generals and various power brokers within Venezuela and like U.S. advisors and officials that are going to be kind of pulling the strings there. Colombia is potentially on that list. Yeah, the Trump administration has talked about that a little bit. They've mentioned that they might want to depose the government of Colombia as well. But the real kicker, and I'll come back to it, is that Marco Rubio has a specific vendetta against Cuba. He is the most Cuban expat of expats. He is the gusano to end all gusanos in America. Bro is literally from Miami, Cuban expat, neocon, warmonger, hates Castro with a raging passion, will make shit up about the Castro regime, even though his family fled the Batista regime. Yeah, this essentially, like, infiltration of Venezuela extra legally, completely contrary to the Constitution and international law in every respect, is essentially a dry run for Marco Rubio's wet dream of invading Cuba and destroying the government there to replace it with something worse. The government of Cuba is also not great. Obviously, they are like on the brink of being a failed state, which I would venture to say is pretty impressive that they're not outright a failed state, given how much of America's economic might has specifically been leveraged to destroy them, particularly. Yeah, like 1 trillion failed assassination attempts, 60 plus years of embargo from the United States. Seriously, Cuba has been embargoed by the United States, the closest and largest trading partner in the region, since I think 1962. Potentially longer. And nonetheless, almost failed state. Yeah, literally, like, Cuba has lived for 60 years on 1 HP. They're on that fucking, they're in a Pokemon game and they keep getting hit and somehow the focus band keeps proccing and they keep living at 1 HP. It should, like, you know, the opponents are screaming like, please fucking die already. You know, any principle upon which the battle was initially waged has long since been lost. Any notion of domino theory and like projecting ideological liberalism and democracy, this is just a blood feud at this point. Marco Rubio and the American neoconservatives just want Cuba to burn because Cuba has not sufficiently burned to this point for their liking. And that's why this raid on Venezuela happened. Venezuela, very easy target. Venezuela does not have very many allies. Cuba actually being one of them. Russia and China being very distant, very loosely tied allies. They were kind of a sitting duck geopolitically. So it was very easy for the Trump administration to, almost certainly with the support of officials within Venezuela, kidnap Maduro particularly and sort of make a political power play to make Venezuela more amenable to U.S. interests. This is a dry run for Cuba. Cuba's going to be a lot harder, but fundamentally it will operate on the same principle. If the United States can get away with dipping its toe in the water, that is to say, cooing Venezuela's government, putting, somebody else in charge, etc., then nobody's going to stop the United States from doing the full-on belly flop into the pool that will be invading and overthrowing the government of Cuba, right? And yes, Maduro did, when they had Maduro in cuffs, he did look like Dr. Disrespect, which is incredibly funny. Here, hold on. Nicolas Maduro handcuffs. Where? Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, this was Maduro in custody for it is a bit much, but for high profile targets who are being brought to the United States on charges, they tend to they put them in like sensory deprivation conditions where they block their sight and sound. It looks like he's aura farming. The United States is aura farming on his behalf. America is aura lobbing onto Nicolas Maduro to aura farm for themselves. They're aura farming off of Maduro, but to do that, they have to aura lob onto Maduro to give him aura so they can farm off of that. Has it been terribly successful? No, but the media is helping them. Like, it's actually absurd how complicit all the news outlets in America have been in response to this operation. No mention of like breaking the law. Like, the news outlets have very sparingly asked any questions about this operation, and to the extent they do, it's like, oh wow, this was such a great, awesome operation. Gluck gluck gluck. What comes next, right? Like, it's literally like self-parodical levels of media capture that are occurring in light of this operation. Yeah, they're literally like making him look like he's John Wick or something, and would be able to fucking gun fu all their asses and shoot them dead. You know. Uh. Anyway, I hope people are ready for an even worse version of Iraq. Donald Trump and the administration have openly declared that they are doing this for the oil, that they are invading Venezuela and toppling the government that is kidnapping Maduro and just propping up his vice president on the condition that them and the generals are more amenable to America for the oil reserves that Venezuela has. It's partially true, but also that's just kind of like what people have told Trump and what the media assumes, right? Remember that the news media landscape has not fundamentally changed at all since Vietnam and since Iraq 2, and by extension since Iraq 1 in the 1990s. Which means that they're going to look at this and be like, oh yeah, so we're going to, this is for the oil. Have you considered the interests of the oil companies? That's the sort of angle that they take on this. They're basically trying to justify this as though it's Iraq. They're like, oh yeah, huzzah, we're spreading freedom and democracy, right? They're going to have elections. And the administration's like, what? No, we're going to just run the country and stabilize it and do nation building, but not the cool kind of nation building, like the corporate colonial extraction kind of nation building, the Monroe Doctrine type shit, where they kind of mold Venezuela into a puppet state of the United States, which is more open than even the media was comfortable being with the Iraq war. But again, Trump went on TV and like declared openly, yeah, this is for the oil. And the media just kind of ignored that and pretended he didn't say it. So there's nothing that the administration could do that the media won't justify. Shit, it's actually gotten to the point where I think news outlets like CBS, NBC, and ABC are more compromised than Fox. Fox News built its identity off of being this bombastic, partisan, conservative personality, and in so doing, they have to take a certain level of initiative. They can't purely be reactive. They have to sort of vocally say shit that they think plays well with a conservative audience, which sometimes leads them to momentary bouts of disagreement with the Trump administration, sort of a window into the conservative infighting that may be happening behind the scenes. They fall in line quickly enough, but they don't always start already having fallen in line. All the other news media outlets are much more careful because of how careless Fox News is. Sometimes they'll like let one swing. But the other news outlets, your CBS's, your New York Times, your Washington Post, they will sort of very cautiously pre-select only for the narratives that most support the Trump administration up front. Like that's the only thing they will ever let air to the public. You know, it's the whole reason why CBS had that documentary about the awful conditions in CCOT, the concentration camp that we were outsourcing our crimes against humanity to, and then just decided not to air it at the last minute, just killed the whole report. You know? Some might say fascism is incoherent. Some might indeed say. Some might indeed say. The whole thing is a hot mess. And when I said Iraq, but worse, Iraq was like not as hard to nation build as Venezuela is going to be. I can't wait for infinite amounts of money to be sunk into Venezuela instead of being spent on anything good. Remember in the ideology tier list video, remember when I was saying that neoconservatism is dangerous because it's the most optimal way you can prevent anything good from happening? We're kind of watching that unfold in real time. The neocons, Marco Rubio being the face of the modern neoconservative movement, he is Mr. American Century. That's him. He coined the term New American Century. Neoconservatism revolves around military brinksmanship as a method of geopolitics and sort of political power plays of this sort that violate international stability for basically everybody except for the home nation, possibly. And the reason they do that is to funnel infinite money and resources into consultants in the military industrial complex. So that way, if that money's being spent on all that stuff, it's being spent on the very neoliberal nation building projects where you bring in foreign investment from private capital and like your buddy with Wall Street and the Pentagon, whatever. You do all that, and all that money isn't going to anything good. It's not going to health benefits. It's not going to healthcare. It's not going to education. It's not going to infrastructure domestically. It's not going to public transit and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's literally it's a more belligerent international version of the infinite money glitch. That's what neoconservatives are engaging in. But that infinite money glitch is dependent on like fucking over other countries and that sort of thing. However bad living conditions were in Venezuela, I have some doubts that they will get better. Like ever. Since it took a long time for Iraq to improve, like, at all. And it definitely was not as a product of like most of the things that America did in Iraq. I want to talk about this a little bit longer. Thank you, Onion. Very cool. Nicolas Maduro charged with felony oil possession. Very cool. Iraq is still fucked to this day. That's true. Yeah. Iraq. It's not like Iraq is not fucked anymore. They're still fucked. Just slightly less fucked than when Saddam Hussein was the president of Iraq. Some might say history likes to repeat itself. Some might say indeed. Something historical patterns, once as tragedy, twice as farce, something. Yeah. Again, this is going to be like a pretty ugly news cycle because I'm going to be like relying on Twitter to get news from this because, again, all of the news media is so fucking captured that they're like not even talking in the ballpark of shit that's relevant for the most part. Oh yeah, this is just one instance of this, but post Left Watch here. Uh, they call Matt Taibbi by name, but notably all of the right wing grifters and pundits have similarly fallen in line that, oh yeah, pro peace presidency, right? Trump is the anti war president. Uh, uh, you know, and all of a sudden they're pro war when it comes to invading Venezuela. Even though, like, yeah, Venezuela like wasn't doing anything. They're saying next stop Greenland. The Trump administration has made overtures about how they need Greenland for national security. Trump actually said that recently as well, and it makes me think that he's going to follow through on that. I could actually see the administration militarily posturing against our allies in Europe to snipe Greenland, to create basically like some 12-year-old's image of what an American empire is, right? But I point this out again, just this is like a pretty characteristic reaction. I've seen other like far-right pundits react in a similar manner. Apparently the trial has started. Nicolas Maduro first statement to the U.S. court today has been, I'm the president of Venezuela and I consider myself a prisoner of war. I was captured in my home in Caracas. U.S. has no political or legal authority to kidnap a foreign head of state. He is being represented because this is a trial and formal procedure based on criminal charges. He is being represented by a lawyer in a court of law. I don't think the charges are going to stick. Is Maduro a criminal? Yes. But the charges are like ridiculously trumped up that they got him on or something like that. I don't even remember what charges they brought Maduro up on. Falling empire, turning to new colonial projects is not to fall. Why does history always do the same? Material conditions. Yeah, this is the United States pursuing new colonial projects, but with a very outdated method of colonialism because America is a cornered animal run by stupid people, which means extremely irrational decision making. It is actually a pretty natural part of the decline of empire that reactionism sort of prevails because they are more willing to provide an emotional narrative that it is just created out of whole cloth. That's always easier than creating an emotional narrative with things that are true. Especially when you consider that the interests maintaining the status quo are very interested also in preventing, the left from running on that narrative, sort of bringing it to bear, with the notable exception of like some local officials, Mamdani and so forth, which I will talk about later on stream. So you have the rise in reactionism, which is by its like defining character, stupid and backwards looking. So they're going to draw from the past with their ideas of what makes a good political future, in a sort of moralizing and nostalgic way, as opposed to looking for more rational avenues of political advancement driven by data, nation building projects domestically, infrastructure, housing, and so forth, addressing like real problems that are causing the decline. That requires more of a brain. Reactionaries are content to fearmonger about black people and brown people and call it a day. And their policymaking is going to reflect that. So they're going to default to old style colonialism to try to put some more fuel into the fire of empire, not realizing that like it's almost like stripping the house for parts just to keep the fire going. it didn't even occur to them that they could go out and chop some more firewood or something like that, right? They charged him for non-legal guns owned in his home in Venezuela, another country, not in the U.S. Okay, yeah, those charges are completely bullshit. Like, there is a procedure for like extradition or whatever. He has to be a criminal, like procedurally speaking, which of course doesn't matter because the procedure means nothing to these people. For an actual extradition, I think you would have to be an international criminal or have broken American laws, or there be some treaty of extradition that was acted upon beforehand to guarantee that this person be tried in another country. Again, like in order for Maduro to be tried and convicted in the United States, he had to have broken a law in America or had to have broken like international law that America was willing to enforce. But like, gun possession sure as shit isn't illegal in the United States. And if it is illegal in Venezuela, America just can't do that. Like that, I mean, obviously America did just kidnap him, right? But like, yeah, it's just Team America World Police bullshit, but like way dumber than Team America World Police, because Team America World Police was at least a satire, a parody of how America conducts itself in the 21st century. Unless they plan to assassinate him, I don't know what they're thinking. They're not thinking, is the thing. Well, actually, to the extent that they are thinking, what they're thinking is if we can get away with this, then Cuba is open for the taking. This is kind of a dry run for Cuba. They want to do this to Cuba, particularly Marco Rubio, as I outlined earlier. That's why they go through this rigmarole with Venezuela toppling the government, kidnapping Maduro, etc., with going through exactly zero of the legal channels to do so, to say nothing of the fact that, like, obviously you're just going in and, like, decapitating the government of a foreign country. Like, oh yeah, this is good for our interests. How? Blank stare. I mean, it is sort of like, in some ways you could argue that, like, oh yeah, strong arming the Venezuelan generals into supporting America's policy agenda is good for American interests, but like, that's going to plunge Venezuela even deeper into the hole, and that's bad because millions of people live in Venezuela. How fun would it be to be his defense lawyer? Oh, freest case of all time. Freest defense case of all time. If you're like, I bet that lawyers were scrambling to pick up this case because it's like they do not have a case. Like, oh yeah, he possessed firearms illegally per Venezuelan law in Venezuela, which is why we kidnapped him and brought him to the United States to stand trial, a country where it is not illegal to own firearms in your own home. uh, and the veneer of like, oh wow, the Venezuelan people are so happy. I think the news outlets all showed like the same Miami gas station where there was like a couple hundred Venezuelan Americans having like a block party basically, and they were like, look at this, the Venezuelan people are so happy, and they're showing Americans. Meanwhile, in the actual country of Venezuela, there have been massive rallies on the streets by the, I guess this person says the Chavistas. I'm assuming that these are, irrespective of political persuasion, I'm assuming these are all just people that really fucking hate the fact that the United States rolled in and, like, uh, you know, deposed their leader. You misunderstood. No, you misunderstood. They're charging him under US law for his guns in his house in Venezuela. Oh, okay, so they're charging him with breaking US law for owning guns in his house in Venezuela. What the brother, that's not illegal in America. It is not illegal to own a firearm. This country is so stupid, dude. This country deserves the century of humiliation that we're about to experience. I'm not even gonna lie. Oh yeah, here's Ken. I actually wanted to take a look at Ken Klippenstein. He wrote an article on this, but here's a post. Chuck Schumer calls the Venezuela operation illegal, but then immediately rules out Congress withholding funding. How does that work? Yeah, this is it's so fucked. The government is so completely captured by military industrial complex interests. They're so ghoulish. The Democratic Party is complicit in this. You would think if there was a functioning opposition party, you would think that it'd be like, oh yeah, what the actual fuck? We're going to destroy the entire administrative branch over this. Like, we're going to turn it upside down to try every single person that was ever involved in this. But like, they're all in the pocket of the same interest. They're all, like, to use a shorthand, the deep state. This is some deep state bullshit where they just wanted to take over Venezuela because of like active political vendettas that they had against Maduro and the Cuban government, you know, using Venezuela as a testing ground. And because Congress is mostly captured by the deep state, that is to say, private contractors, the military industrial complex, and like venture capital and Silicon Valley and whatever, they're just, they have to like, basically the game the Democrats are playing is how do we look like we're ineffectually opposing this enough to convince people that we might not actually like it, but behind the scenes we're completely fine with this because this is what our donors want. Let me see if I can find that article. Ken Klippenstein, please show me the article. Yeah, it's like I feel like this is so perfectly encapsulating that the Democrats are probably like have this passing workplace frustration that like, oh boy, okay, I'm gonna have to play cover for Donald Trump again because they all know that that's their job. Their job is to cuck out to Donald Trump and the interests of the deep state and the military industrial complex. You know? Ken Klippenstein had a really good article on this. Was it under this post? No, where is it? Here, hold on. Ken Klippenstein newsletter. Okay. This is actually a good segue into talking about Zoran Mamdani as well. But Ken Klippenstein had a really good article on this, featuring, of course, the photo of President El Presidente Dr. Disrespect. Thank you. This was an audacious operation that only the United States could do. President Trump announcing the arrest of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. And then Zoran Mamdani, unrelated quote, but using audacious. Beginning today, we will govern expansively and audaciously. This is from his inauguration speech. Audacity is in the air. That's the word used by President Trump to describe the arrest of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Zoran Mamdani, in his inaugural speech, also vowed to govern New York audaciously. It's a poetic illustration of two radically different visions for America, one of muscular national security and the other of a bold economic agenda. Yet the media reception couldn't be more different. Compare the hysterics over Mamdani's proposal for a rent freeze. Whatever happened to that mass exodus of the wealthy? Oh yeah, the thing that everybody on the left said was going to happen ended up not happening, just like everybody said. Like, we're gonna leave New York. Yeah, fucking right. To the barely concealed glee over Trump's decapitation operation in Venezuela. In fairness, the operation was nothing if not audacious. Trump hinted at the sheer scale of secrecy involved during his Saturday press conference. The absolute state of this administration to be bragging about the secrecy of an operation to the whole press. Brother. You know, they are, in a way, they're living up to the whole most transparent administration in history thing. They are incredibly transparent with their intentions. And somehow they are still in power a year in. I guess just because Americans suck very frequently. Yeah. Something propaganda something. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but it was an incredible thing to see. Trump said, referring to the clandestine operation. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. Oh yeah, absolutely. Power of propaganda can make the stupidest thing on earth seem just perfectly normal, logical, reasonable. You know, it's the power of complete media narrative capture. And conservatives actually need that, because the moment you ask them a question that's like even slightly inconvenient, they fall apart. They fall apart so fast. Like Marco Rubio was asked a question from CBS or something. One of these absolute bootlickers of news outlets about like, oh, so when are elections going to be held? And he was like, elections? He started it by incredulously repeating like, elections? And then tried to enter the weave subsequently. But like, they are just completely unprepared for any scrutiny of any kind, which is why they have engaged in this decades-long project of media capture, and is also why, you know, which is like why they depend on this media capture. The president wasn't exaggerating. Behind the Delta Force operators and Night Stalker pilots, behind even more secret pilots and operators and people on the ground, behind the CIA case officers recruiting and servicing sources, behind the NSA analysts listening in, behind the imagery analysts, and on and on and on, were policymakers, planners, logisticians, maintainers, weapons handlers, thousands of support staff from weathermen and women to doctors and nurses standing by for the worst possibilities. All of that was kept secret from the public and even Congress. Why? Because, as Trump put it, Congress has a tendency to leak. One of the more casual expressions of contempt for transparency I've ever seen. But Secretary of State Marco Rubio was even more blunt. You can't congressionally notify something like this, Rubio said in an ABC interview. Oh, yeah, it was ABC, not CBS. Explaining, it will leak, it's simple as that. So it's literally like, we didn't want to tell Congress because Congress would have told the press. And then people would have known about the operation happening or being planned or whatever. Which they are legally obligated to not just notify Congress, but get congressional approval for an act of war. But I feel like that era is kind of done. I feel like that's a kind of a bygone era. Countries actually declaring war using the official channels. Everything is now going to be a 3-day special military operation. Funnily enough, if it weren't for the fact that Russia actually declared war on Ukraine, that kind of set the new standard. Oh yeah, we're invading this country for a special military operation, tee-hee. But unlike the Russia-Ukraine war, there's just never a declaration of war issued. This is the character of the neoconservative new American century, getting the American military involved in multiple wars and conflicts across the world. Yeah, literally just military adventurism, embark on a ton of special military operations, none of which have a formal declaration of war, but are all treated like war efforts. That way, infinite money can be funneled into the Pentagon, the war machine, the military-industrial complex, the private sector, consultants, contractors, and so forth, and no money can ever be spent on anything good. Public services will continue to decline ad infinitum so long as neoliberalism and neoconservatism exist. That's what this is. It is an ideology of wealth consolidation and abject decline of everything else. Like you said, infinite money glitch, line go up, number go up for the portfolios. We pay for those secret televisions that the national security masters watch. We pay for the worldwide network. We pay for the IT infrastructure, the satellites that literally carry the secret news. But we don't even get to know the broadcast contours of what that system is learning so we can debate the policy it is informing, nor even do the politicians we elect. Thousands of soldiers and civilians and contractors, spies and diplomats knew and kept secrets about this operation. Hundreds of foreign officials, our so-called partners, knew the staging areas and intelligence bases in their own countries. They knew, but we could not know, not even generally, lest we question and debate the wisdom of the operation or the outcome that it would produce. This also reminds me, the news outlets knew this was going to happen beforehand as well. The Washington Post obtained information pertaining to this story, and they did catch and kill. They elected specifically not to run the news story that the Trump administration was about to invade Venezuela. I guarantee that if they ran that story, the administration would not have invaded Venezuela. They wanted it to happen. Think back to the Instacart scandal where quote unquote dynamic pricing, basically AI pricing algorithms were being used to set different prices for the same groceries at the same store for different people. Based on people's spending habits, they would charge you more for certain items, not unlike what Amazon does, but this time with your actual grocery store. And it was looking to be the new model for how grocery pricing works. Until More Perfect Union did a giant investigative report, exposed that they were, basically price fixing and ringing you for all you're worth. Literally oh yeah, because you earn slightly more, we're going to charge you more proportional to your income. That way we get more profit and the amount of money that you spend on groceries stays the same relative to your income, doesn't matter how much money you make. Nobody will get to enjoy cheap groceries ever. And at least for now, the grocery giants and Instacart actually stopped doing that. There's an investigation into them. And it seems like that avenue of enshittification has actually at least temporarily been shut down. Investigative reporting works. And nobody knows this better than the extremely fucking captured, media outlets that don't want investigative reporting to happen. But they even facepalmed as they got the information. Yeah, they probably facepalmed, rolled their eyes at how stupid the administration was, but then were like, well, we can't tell people about this because, well, we want to invade Venezuela too. Again, it's like the neoliberal critique of neoconservatism is just that the neoliberals would do the international military adventurism and regime change and wealth extraction and enshittification better than the conservatives would. Taxes, but the state is the shop. Oh, it is way worse than taxes. This is 1 million times more regressive than taxes could ever be, right? Because beyond a certain point, and quieter too. Beyond a certain point, this sort of price fixing scheme with dynamic pricing actually wouldn't affect you very much. If you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, it's like how, depending on your salary, certain expenses will matter more or less. Like groceries being pretty uniformly similar, depending on the amount of people you're feeding, will matter more for lower income households than upper income households. So there's a curve. Grocery prices they fluctuate based on the person, based on the shop, but they'll be pretty similar. And then income has a slope that trends upwards, for higher incomes, right? And so beyond a certain point of wealth, those fluctuations no longer impact your ability to support yourself. The price fixing scheme of charging different grocery prices based on a person and their spending habits, by the way, thank you for the follow, Luminea X, is designed to keep people who are poor and for whom groceries are a bigger part of their budget on the brink of absolute destitution, right? If you're making $2,000 a month, the price fixing for groceries, the algorithmic pricing that depends on your spending habits is going to impact you way more than somebody earning $20,000 a month. Like somebody earning $20,000 a month, they're not going to care. They're hardly even going to notice. Because groceries are that much smaller. It's exponentially smaller of a portion of their budget, right? But this does also affect this pricing scheme was designed to exacerbate how unequal the income curve is. It does affect the middle classes, the sort of the working class that has a little bit of pocket change to their name after all is said and done each month, right? But it doesn't really affect once you get into potentially labor aristocracy and obviously really wealthy people who own businesses and are engaging in buy, borrow, die and that sort of shit. Anyways, the point being that investigative journalism still does matter and make a difference, which is why Washington Post did a catch and kill on this invasion of Venezuela story. Yeah, wealthy people would not design a system that hurts themselves, at least in relative terms. Though, wealthy people are stupid enough that they do things very stupidly all the time. There are literally Silicon Valley types that are arguing against a wealth tax, even though Ro Khanna is desperately trying to explain to them, you fucking morons, I'm trying to help you not get your heads cut off. They are relentless to the point of irrationality in pursuing their own interests. The process of secrecy is not just tactical to keep ship movements from the Venezuelans, it's also to deceive Congress and the American press. In theory, the watchdogs for the public. In theory, being one of a couple operative terms here, but yes. The Trump admin lied through its teeth about not pursuing regime change on the dubious technicality. An intelligence official tells me that Maduro did not legally represent a legitimate government. It was the thinnest possible veneer that they put up. It's like, oh yeah, we view him as illegitimate. Basically, we don't like him, so we are going to declare that he is illegitimately a representative of the state of Venezuela, which gives us, therefore, the right to overthrow him with military force. None of which follows from any other part, right? Like, oh, we don't like him. Okay, great. Tough titties, right? But then they derive from that a non sequitur of therefore he's illegitimate. Then they derive from that a non sequitur of therefore we get to go and militarily depose him. None of those leads to the other thing. But they just made it up and the media was like, yeah, sure. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met. The Secretary of State added to justify the silence. America's good because America is great. Yeah, like, legitimately, these people, like, and the Hillary Clinton-esque Democrats, like the Democrats who are very Hillary Clinton brain, all the neolibs and neocons are more similar to each other than either of them are to either of their political bases. They not like us for real, is what I'm saying. Like, these people are ghouls. What that means is pinpointing location of Maduro. The trigger event took place early Saturday morning, but unlike a Hollywood movie in which the operation materializes out of nowhere, they planned the raid for months, prepared and rehearsed it, and painstakingly brought together all the pieces. Then the covert action machine generates the outcome it was designed to, with minimal input from the putative deciders, up to and including presidents. The reason this system is tolerated is its apparent elegance. Even I, a bone-deep critic of the national security state, Albert Einstein would be proud of this man, couldn't help but admire it, at least abstractly. By the way, that's not an accident that I bring that up. What I described as the phenomenon of the new American century, Albert Einstein almost predicted word for word. Not with the part about, like, there not being declarations of war anymore, but Albert Einstein in his essays in the 1940s, I think, sort of viewing the post-war political landscape, witnessed the construction of this military-industrial complex interest that would then define the 20th and 21st centuries, and said, like, Jesus Christ, we are headed towards a world where everything is going to be justified by the security of the nation, national security, and it's going to motivate endless war and internecine destruction in the name of peace. You know? Like, oh, the only way for us to enjoy peace is for us to belligerently attack every other nation that we perceive as potentially maybe a threat to us sometimes. You know? Tell me it wasn't always the case. No, believe it or not, the military-industrial complex and the military relationship between countries used to look different. That's not to say wars were less common, but there was a time when things weren't exactly like this, right? The world has never been a particularly peaceful place politically, but what I'm saying is Einstein and Ken Klippenstein stay winning. Can help but admire. So abstractly, when I first read about Maduro's arrest, my immediate reaction was frankly awe that something so, yes, audacious was carried out successfully. What other thing our government does goes so smoothly? And that, I guess, is the appeal to policymakers. This, I think, is because it wasn't like purely a America goes in completely unannounced and kidnaps Maduro type of oh, sorry, type of situation. This was almost certainly planned with the knowledge of Maduro's government beforehand. Like, no casualties, like, no American casualties, and they just got Maduro. Like, there's a lot of ministers in the Venezuelan government. Like, it is a state and operates based on the template of most other liberal states where you have these departments and ministries and ministers overseeing these ministries, all of whom have political power and are overseen by the president, right? Like, all these people are significant policymaking figures. If they actually wanted to do a full-on regime change in Venezuela, they would have gotten Maduro. They would have gotten like a bunch of his ministers as well. They would have maybe gotten the generals, but no, they walked out of there just with Maduro, which means they had cooperation from the inside, or at least like some degree of assent from the inside, where like the generals and these ministers were willing to either look the other way or just straight up let them in to take Maduro and leave, you know? Captured him like speedrunner speed. Yeah, what I'm saying is basically this was not SEAL Team 6 going to take out bin Laden, right? This was like the military equivalent of cigar smoke backroom deals in politics. You know, the Trump administration was like, we need a win. Let's go strong arm Venezuela. They talked to the Venezuelan generals. They were like, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. We can come in and destroy your country and take Maduro. Or what we can do is like work something out with you where we just get to come in quietly and take Maduro, right? And you guys get to stay where you are in positions of power, like ministries left intact or whatever. Your government basically remains intact, but now it's the vice president, and you guys have to be more friendly to American interests. We get to sell this to the public. You get to still enjoy your, like, I don't know, child sex slaves or whatever the generals are doing in Venezuela, right? That's probably what happened. Some version of that. Oh, he even mentions the operation that killed bin Laden here. When Obama was running for re-election in 2012, VP Biden's signature line on the campaign trail was, Osama bin Laden is dead and General Motors is alive. Very Joe Biden thing to say. Secret operation of the same ilk. Obama was feted for his brave decision, and books were written about how magnificent it all was. National security puffed. That's true. Everybody was given the national security state a giant political handjob. Meanwhile, actual like homosexual handjobs of the real variety were still illegal in some states, I think, which is fucked up, honestly. When Trump carried out the assassination of his Iranian general Qasem Soleimani um, on January 3rd, 6 years to the day of Maduro's arrest and other secret operation, was perhaps the only time ever the press uniformly heaped praise on the president. I actually have to take this call. I'm sorry, guys. Hassan moment. I had to leave the stream. I'll tell you about what that phone call was about afterwards. Kind of goofy story. Okay. Back to this article. Sorry, there was a pause there. Okay, Qasem Soleimani, 6 years to the day of Maduro's arrest, another secret operation. Perhaps the only time ever the press uniformly heaped praise on the president. Yeah, the only time that the press uniformly loves Donald Trump unambiguously is when he's fucking warmongering with other countries that the United States doesn't like. You know, they love when he dropped the what is it, the mother of all bombs or whatever, the Moab. They loved when he assassinated General Qasem Soleimani. They loved, this operation in Venezuela. Politically covert operations work. Though Maduro was deposed for multiple reasons, including his nationalization of Venezuelan oil and his relations with countries like China, Russia, and Cuba, and so on, Trump has taken care in most of his rhetoric to cast the war on Venezuela and the war on cartels as about fentanyl, until the speech that he gave about this operation, right? This is where I think that interpretations may diverge a little bit. The U.S. is definitely not happy with the fact that Maduro had nationalized the Venezuelan oil industry, but honestly, I think Cuba is the most relevant factor here. That the United States wanted to test the waters with obliterating Cuba, so they tried a covert military operation with Venezuela first. Historically, I'm aware that the United States has not liked when other countries nationalize certain industries, but the United States already has an oil cash cow in the form of Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern petrostates, right? Venezuelan oil is not something that America needs, the Trump administration has even said their oil infrastructure is in disrepair and would take a long time to fix. And they ostensibly have argued that that's why they're doing nation building. But that clashes. Again, this is the incoherence of of fascism and the fascist approach towards politics and the fascist worldview and just fascism generally. That clashes with them saying we have to have the oil from Venezuela. No, we don't. We don't have to have it. We don't want it. This that's just something that they're doing to jangle keys, basically, is talk about the oil. Also, they haven't mentioned fentanyl a single time since this operation happened. It's all been yeah, we deposed Maduro and now we're in charge of Venezuela and we can rebuild Venezuela and we're gonna do nation building. We're gonna be calling the shots and stuff. It's the most naked Monroe Doctrine shit of a declining empire that's trying desperately to reassert some sort of geopolitical power without actually addressing any of the reasons for a national socioeconomic decline. They're doubling down on the things that America has been doing that causes the decline. They're doubling down on the elements of decline in the effort that oh, maybe this will fix it. Haha. Yeah, they don't go empires do not go out quietly. The Roman Empire was very messy and chaotic and noisy in its waning decades. Many empires have experienced that, where the not only does the dysfunction and contradictions reach a fever pitch, but so too does the political noise and belligerence. Millions of Americans are outraged and devastated at the war scale death toll exacted by the drug, and though one can fact check the president to death on his words, he's the master of looking for big, bold ideas to fight common problems that resonate with the electorate. He do be saying shit that people are wow, I feel that for real. you know? Especially when there are no other examples of an audacious vision being advanced. Before Mamdani, that is. Which I will get to in a little while. Yeah, the at the risk of like devolving my IQ to that of your average Twitch live streamer, which I hope I'm smarter than, the Venezuela situation is indeed crazy. Um, again, I've already said I think what needs to be said. This is neoconservative decline of empire shit, Monroe Doctrine type shit. America's trying to flex its imperial muscles desperately in the face of obvious decline in a way that doubles down on that decline. You know? The reason for the United States declining in the first place is because of the incentive structures created by capitalism. The incentive to engage in endless speculation, contract signage, and public-private partnerships with the private sector and the military-industrial complex, because that will always be more profitable. When you've discovered the infinite money glitch that is, that will always be more profitable than actually providing goods and services, or anything that benefits society. The margins that you could make on doing anything good for anyone would never possibly be as high as an infinite cycle of economic incest between tech companies, military contractors, investment firms, venture capital, private equity, and so forth, that just results in a bigger and bigger bubble. That sure will eventually pop, but that doesn't necessarily result in that fundamental dynamic changing in any way. Like, we've seen that bubble to varying sizes inflate and pop several times just since the end of World War II, right? With the three most notable versions being the 1987 crash, the dot-com bubble, and the 2008 financial crisis. Not to mention the other smaller speculative financial crises that happened in between all of those. And of course, the bubble that's going on right now. This bubble is the reason that America is declining, and the decline has prompted America to double down on the things that create such a bubble to begin with. The endless pursuit of profit, growth, expansion, new markets, new colonies, whatever the fuck, right? Because that'll always be more profitable than like, oh yeah, we're introducing a bold new transit plan so that people can be less dependent on cars, right? And so they can navigate the city easier. They'll have more pocket change to spend. Sure, that nets a lot of revenue, even just within a liberal capitalist framework of nation building and infrastructure projects. But it can never net as much revenue and profit as just cycling money back and forth between the same dozen companies, all speculating on each other and watching the stock market go up. It's all the same shit. Legitimately the same set of incentives that have led to the United States illegally invading Venezuela and deposing Maduro and like kidnapping him are the same set of incentives that lead to Saudi Arabia buying out like FGC tournaments and video game developers in an effort to like sports wash themselves, right? Like the enshittification of the FGC is happening for the same reason as the invasion of Venezuela. And like pick any enshittification phenomenon on the internet. The reason you have to like get your phone replaced every year, the reason that your phone gets so slow inexplicably, same reason. Providing goods and services actually isn't very profitable. So they have to come up with different ways to make more profit. So they sandbag existing products. They create that like planned obsolescence, infinite speculation cycle, and so on. All of it comes back to the same Marxian superstructure. At least I think I'm using the term superstructure correctly there. Somebody can check me on that if I'm not. Somebody who's better read on Marx than me. Because, you know, as a good Marxist, of course, I have not read Marx. That's not true. I tried to. I own all three volumes of Capital. I got maybe 200 pages into volume one, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I read Adam Smith, and I cannot read Karl Marx. Anyways, I've yapped for long enough about that. You gotta start small. That's the thing. I had already started not just small, but like worked my way up big. I like in high school, I read the manifesto. And since then, I've read Adam Smith, Rosa Luxemburg, both volumes of Capital in the 21st Century and Capital Ideology by Piketty. In fact, I've read Piketty's entire collected works. I've read State and Revolution, Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism from Lenin. I've read Kropotkin, Conquest of Bread, James C. Scott, Against the Grain and Seeing Like a State. I've read some shit, right? I could not work my way through Capital. And I don't think I would want to at this stage, you know? Especially when, like, all of social science is just a dialogue with the ghost of Marx anyway. I'm going to be exposed to basically every idea that exists within Das Kapital through just learning about other shit anyways. You know? So the point is, I didn't go straight to Capital, and I still couldn't crack it. That shit is hard. Yeah, Mark's explaining for the 1 million billionth time why a meter of linen cloth is fucking 3 francs livres. Yeah, the goal for me is just trying to learn. You know? It's same person again. I'll be back. They hung up. I guess they butt dialed me. Anyways, before I talk about Zoran Mamdani, I could tell the story about why I got that phone call and why I actually had to take it and get up and step away from stream. So I try to check my mail relatively frequently. I'm trying to develop a habit of that. I haven't been as good at it. I don't check it every day, but I do check it several times a week. I think a few days ago, it was either Friday or something. Yeah, it was El Presidente. Maduro needs my help, the world's greatest internet socialist. A few days ago, I got a thing in the mail, which was a very official looking document that said, like, time essential or time sensitive material enclosed in like this film plastic envelope. And I opened it. I was like, okay, shit. It's addressed to my address, but it wasn't addressed to me. And so I was like, okay. And I opened it, and it was a bankruptcy notice. Not my name, not even the name of the previous resident of the apartment I live in. Different person entirely, as far as I know. That is true. It's the ghost of Karl Marx. No iPhone. Vuvuzela, Labubu Dubai chocolate, something, boba tea. 100 squadrillion people dead. Wouldn't have clicked on that. Sounds sketchy as hell. Buddy, it was physical mail. Did you not hear me when I said checking my mail? Not my email, my mail. It was like I said, film plastic envelope. I opened it up. Official court seal. This was a real document for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. But like, I looked at it and I was like, oh shit, this is pretty important, but it's not for me. Still sounds sketchy. You do not understand how critical thinking works. This is a real bankruptcy document. It had an official court seal. It was not for the court district that I am in. And they were like, oh yeah, it's like this is to notify such and such of these bankruptcy proceedings that you have to go through, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying it's fake. You literally are. So I looked anywhere. I was like, okay, I need to reach out to these people, because if I'm getting this in the mail physically at my address for the wrong person, then this actual person is somewhere else, way elsewhere in the country, and didn't get their bankruptcy notice. And so I looked for like a phone number. Is it sounding sketchy a term for sounding sus, not the actual claim of wrong on that? Yes, and sounding sketchy or sus is you saying that sounds fake. That's what that means. Sketchy and sus are synonyms, but what that communicates is you think it's not real, that it's not legitimate. That is the sentiment you're communicating. How did they even get the wrong address? I have no idea. Because as far as I know, this guy was not the previous resident. My brain went to some pretty crazy places, like, oh, maybe he listed just a random address to like avoid the bankruptcy shit. Either way, some court district elsewhere is having like a really big headache if I don't call somebody about this. Luckily, there was a phone number for like one of the companies involved in these proceedings. And they were like, yeah, any questions or concerns or whatever, call this phone number. A baking seal? It wasn't a baking seal. It was a court seal. The seal of... I'm not going to show the document. It has sensitive information in it. But it's a court document. Bankruptcy is a legal status that involves legal proceedings. So you get legal documents pertaining to that. So it had the seal of the court on it. On the document, not the envelope. Envelopes of information from like the government tend to be pretty nondescript and just say like time-sensitive material enclosed or something like that. So I called that number, but they like weren't available. So I left a message saying like, hey, I'm not the, like I'm the resident at this address, but I'm not the person who this bankruptcy notice is meant for. I'm not a debtor. I've never been a debtor. I'm certainly not the debtor in question. I have a different name on the envelope. Did you have to open the mail? I'd have to double check the envelope, but there wasn't anything on the envelope. It might have been that like there was a little window in the envelope that you could see the paper inside, but no, the name and address was on the actual paper. So I had to, in order to see what the mail actually was, I had to open the envelope and look at some poor bastard's Chapter 11 bankruptcy notice. Anyways, I called them. I left a message. Hey, I'm the resident at this address, but I'm not the guy. Please call me back at this number. And I gave them my number, so that we can like work this out, and so that this guy can get his bankruptcy notice, because this is probably like really important. And so just earlier in the stream, they called me. I recognized the number. And that's why I had to step out and take the call. They asked for the address. They asked for the name and address on the paper so they could like notify the proper authorities or whatever. Like, yeah, you've got the wrong address. And then that was the end of that. And then they butt dialed me for 2 seconds, and that was pretty funny. But that's the whole story. One thing's for sure, though, whatever they're going bankrupt for, it's not medical debt or student loan debt, because you actually are not allowed to go bankrupt on either of those things in America. Bankruptcy as a legal status clears you of your debt. It is a negative mark on like your credit report or whatever. It tanks your social credit score so that like if you ever go to a bank asking to borrow money, it's like they just don't they'll just like be totally unwilling to loan you money. But theoretically, if you go bankrupt, that's like all your debts are cleared. It's like, okay, you've demonstrated that this debt is crushing, and you were unable to pay. Like, we've taken whatever collateral. You're good. You're clear, right? Yeah, it's like turns you into persona non grata. It's like bad citizen. It literally, the shit that liberals make fun of China for doing with their social credit score. It's what actually happens with your credit score and bankruptcy status. Like, filing bankruptcy is the consequence that liberals imagine exist for having a low social credit score in China, when there's just a regular ass credit score that actually tanks your entire ability to engage with the economy if you ever default and go bankrupt. What would happen if bankruptcy didn't exist? We're kind of witnessing that right now. Um, if bankruptcy didn't exist, if it functionally was not an option, which is the case for most people, what you would look at is a world of infinite debt traps and infinite debt peonage, which means servitude that is rooted in debt. Basically, debt used as, yeah, like basically debt slavery, which is what we have right now. This is why most poor people don't go bankrupt, because America, and by extension the entire world, as a product of how capitalism works, as a method of upward wealth transfer, this is a debt economy. Everybody is in debt all the time, mostly, right? In fact, you're punished for not engaging with the debt economy. So, like, what if bankruptcy didn't exist? Easy. You would be debt addled for your whole life and be uh, uh, basically in a state of indentured servitude or debt slavery. That's kind of what it is. And I don't mean like official indentured servitude. Contracts of indenture only exist for some extremely ethically questionable companies, but yeah, you'd be a serf in feudal Russia. Um, no, actually, a very financially different situation. Serfs in feudal Russia, or in feudal Europe, anywhere in a feudal system, serfs were not always indebted. Um, they paid tithe and tax, but they were like, the financial relationship that serfs had to the landlord and the crown is very different than the modern creditor and debtor, that than the modern debtor does to the modern creditor in a market system. I'd be hard pressed to, because I'm not an expert, I'd be hard pressed to describe the exact financial details of serfdom in like a pre-capitalist society, but I do know, I've read enough about it to know that it's pretty different from the modern incarnation of debt servitude and sort of being trapped in debt. Just remembered Squid Games exists. Oh yeah, that's right, Squid Games. That's crazy. Funny Mr. Beast Squid Game. Bro missed the whole point of the show. I mean, really, I think Mr. Beast is like probably understands the point of the show. He just makes content for like 12-year-olds. Uh, it like extremely brain rot kind of content, and that plays well with that audience, so he did it. Yeah, type shit. I feel like Squid Games is super super whitewashed. Um, I haven't seen Squid Game, so I can't really speak to it, but my understanding is that, at least for season 1, it's just a really really unsubtle version of the dynamic that we engage with by virtue of like living in the economic system that we do, that basically like our debt is a spectator sport essentially for the ultra wealthy, and our lives are really on the line, but they don't care. Yeah, it's if anything, it's whitewashed by the studio and viewership. It's like whitewashed by the interpretation that gets aired to the world most frequently, which is just that it's like that it's been incorporated into the pop culture lexicon. It's been recuperated in a sense. Um, it is overtly anti-capitalist media. Pop culture tends to whitewash stuff. Yeah, Foucault moment. It's just a cycle of recuperation. Um, you know, Capitalism absorbs critiques of itself into itself. That's how you get shit like you get stuff like Train to Busan and Snowpiercer and Squid Games and Hunger Games. All of those are very popular media series or media pieces, but everybody who watches them isn't anti-capitalist, right? Because everybody's not going to take that away from those shows and movies. They are anti-capitalist. Those are all anti-capitalist media, but they were produced in a context of overwhelming capitalist like culture capture for a capitalist audience, basically. You know, Hulk Smash Capitalism, legit comic run. That sounds cool. It sounds soy, but I'd probably like it. You're probably right. Speaking of hating capitalism, I want to get to the other cool thing. Our glorious king, Zoran Mamdani, has been busy. He's been very busy. Again, the typical suspects in the news outlets will not be much help because they're exclusively going to focus on the fact that he, by virtue of rescinding a bunch of executive orders from Eric Adams' administration that he issued post his criminal indictment on corruption charges, one of those executive orders was a BDS, like anti-BDS order that made it a no-no to like for New York businesses or institutions to boycott, divest, or sanction the state of Israel. And so everybody, like every news outlet, pretended that was the only thing that he did and was like, oh my God, he's so anti Semitic because he repealed an anti BDS law. And of course, buried the lead about him repealing or repealed a law, repealed an order, executive order. They buried the lead about all the other executive orders that he repealed because they were issued by a mayor who had been literally indicted on corruption charges. Here, let me NYC mayor. What has he been up to? He has been really hard at work. Oh, he's live right now. Let's have a look at this. What's going on here?
Enough with polluting our air with all the emissions, and enough with underfunding the transit system that is the lifeline of this entire region.
I love him so much.
So we got it done. We changed how
He's aura farming in the back.
city and the region live.
Kathy Hochul. Okay.
And now the results are in. Traffic entering the congestion zone is down 11%.
Okay.
And this is incredible.
So I'm going to pause here. It's not going to be 100% live, but they're announcing the success of the congestion pricing system that they've implemented in New York and plans for like future transit expansion, which is a major part of Mamdani's platform, expanding public transit in New York, making buses fast and free as per his sloganeering, improving and overhauling the subway system, and reducing traffic so that you don't get overwhelmed by 1 million cars per second in New York City. Hochul, for all her ghoulishness, has actually been pretty smart to see that Mamdani is the new hot item in especially New York politics, but national politics as well. And she's like, okay, I care about my own political career, so I'm going to align with Mamdani on this. You know, Mamdani has genuine interests in like making New York the most greatest city on earth times 1 million, you know, where all New Jersey car owners are executed for counter-revolutionary behavior, right? Basically, she sees the writing on the wall, so she's supporting Zohran Mamdani.
7 million fewer cars going into that zone over the last year. 27 million.
Yeah, make NYC great again or something.
Pollution is down more than 20% in 1 year.
That is insane. I remember debating this topic with some of the liberals in my life, the congestion pricing, and they were making such weird overtures about how authoritarian it is to prevent commuters from driving their cars in New York City. Fuck them. Let them take the subway. That shit's better anyways. You know? But a 20% decrease in traffic over 1 year just for implementing very mild, by the way, congestion pricing for a certain area of New York City is actually a massive impact. And interestingly, the moment that results started coming in about like how effective the traffic and congestion was, how much more pedestrianized the city was becoming, how much better the buses were now that there weren't a million cars on the road all the time, said liberals all of a sudden shut up about the congestion pricing.
People with asthma are breathing better. Little kids don't have to worry about this. And
that's true. That's another factor that doesn't frequently get brought up because it's like, I don't know. People don't always think of it. I don't always think of it like the air quality is, but that is a problem.
our streets are safer. New York City recorded
Oh yeah.
safest streets in history.
It's funny how little of a cheer that got, considering how much the streets being safe or unsafe gets talked about in politics. But yes, reminder that like vehicle deaths in America are almost as bad as all gun deaths. Like very similar. It's like 40-something thousand for each of them. Gun deaths are slightly worse. It's like high 40,000s. And then like vehicle deaths is low 40,000s nationwide per year. And with this one policy now, it's like, oh shit, New York streets are literally safer than they've ever been before.
That's a long time with crashes and injuries down in the congestion zone. And everybody who told me from the president on down, you're killing New York City, nobody's going to come. You know, traffic's down because the place is empty. No one's there. It's like, seriously? Have you been here lately? Because Manhattan, it's had some of its best years. The best year for Broadway. Everybody.
That is absolutely true. Traffic from cars is actually really bad for business because it requires so much less space be used for actual economic activity and so much more of that space be used for parking. And it's also just a horrible use of space for the cars. Like if people are walking around, there's more of a chance that they interact with any given like business, like on the ground floor of like some retail space or whatever. And people aren't on time to be wage slaves. Yes, again, a very liberal capitalist framework of analysis of why like we shouldn't like or support cars. But yes, if you're purely analyzing it from the perspective of doing good business as a capitalist, then cars are bad. If you are a socialist and you care about human flourishing in it like a philosophical sense. You care about the ability of people to interact with the social landscape around them and to go do things that they want to do and feel like they're a part of the city. Traffic is also bad because it alienates you from the city by cutting you off from large sections of it. Like, oh, that's a like asphalt river that I can't cross because I'll die, so I'm restricted to like this block. You know?
In the area that people said would be killed by this are up 6%. I mean, people are still coming, they're still shopping, they're still spending money. And best year for office leasing. So all the doomsayers said people are going to leave Manhattan and there'll be all these buildings that are empty. Best year for online leasing in 20 years, leading the nation.
I do appreciate her rubbing it in. Again, lib shit queen right there. But like, I do appreciate her rubbing it into all the people like, oh my God, everybody's going to leave New York because Zohran Mamdani, Muslim, Islam, is socialism or something. And she's like, actually, everybody wants to come to New York now. Because fucking, of course, none of these people actually care. All the people are like, oh my God, oh warida, it's so over for New York. None of them care.
Speeds are up. Buses are faster. Transit ridership is up in the zone as well. But guess what? We gave you some time back. How does 25% faster coming through the Lincoln Tunnel sound? Oh, let me top that.
All right. I think that's enough of that for now anyways. That was just one thing, by the way. Mamdani's been a very busy guy.
Growing up in the neighborhood was
What's he
in
been?
recess
What's he saying?
asking other students to compare and
I'll come back to this announcement. Oh my God, he's so good. Look at this shit. Okay, hold on. Bad landlords giving you a hard time. This is one of the first things they started on in the tenure. Dubious fees leaving your wallet light, ceilings leaking, and your landlord's phone is off the hook. We'll be hosting rental ripoff hearings in our first 100 days of office. Details to come at nyc.gov/rental ripoff. See you there. Yes. Yes. Show trials for the counter-revolutionary mayors for the not kulaks. That's not a particularly apt analog, like analogy.
About how you're getting ripped off. For the first time, our city is bringing this discussion directly to you. And it's only just the start. We're excited to share more information about these hearings soon. In the meantime, start to
literally like write down every fucking thing your landlord has done to neglect the property or screw you over. We will take that shit on our website and we're going to like basically use that shit in evidence for putting all the landlords of the city on trial in the court of public opinion, which they will obviously lose. I saw, what was it? One of the speeches that Zohran Mamdani gave on his first or second day in office. He was going around looking at, it was this, I think. It was this, not this clip, but it was from this speech where Zohran Mamdani had been going around like actually personally looking at some of the more rundown and neglected apartments that are owned by like slumlords in New York City. And I joked during the speech that he was talking about like, oh yeah, a lot of these properties are being condemned or whatever, like they're being bankrupted or whatever. The landlords are auctioning them off to other slumlords. I joke that like, guess what, bitch? Now you're selling that to the state. Or selling that to the city. It's city property now, and we're gonna turn it into affordable housing. But no, he actually said that. Like he actually said, the city is going to buy some of these in these auctions. We're gonna buy some of these like rundown, unkept properties, and we're going to transform it into affordable housing where people will not be charged an arm and a leg to live in squalid conditions. He's been really busy. So we've got the transit announcement where presumably he's like he's working on expanding the bus system, I believe. He's been doing shit. I can't find this like stuff immediately. Yeah, he hit the ground running. And like it's not like he's even breaking the whole system to begin with. He's not even taking a sledgehammer to the like framework that the system operates off. No, he's using tools that are already available to him. The whole like a lot of the decline of America and of American cities is almost completely outside of the law. There are laws, like the tenant landlord relationship is a contract. In contract law, both parties have to uphold the terms of the contract. You know, the landlords literally have not been upholding their part of a legally binding agreement, which means they are liable to face legal consequences. Their property is liable to be repossessed by the state or by the city because they refuse to be good stewards and they refuse to abide by the terms of a legally binding contract, right? Or at the very least, if the landlords are not obligated to uphold, like if the landlords feel no obligation to uphold their part of the contract, then you as the tenant no longer need to pay rent because you upholding your part of the contract is contingent on them upholding theirs. That's how a legal agreement works. If the legal agreement breaks down, one party is not bound to respect it if the other party has shown a flagrant disrespect for it already. You know? It's like liberals are uniquely bad at doing stuff. Yes, neoliberals fucking suck at doing stuff. It's the same set of incentives. The infinite cycle of like funneling money from the real economy into the fake economy with the consultants, contractors, businesses, military industrial complex, whatever. Landlords are a part of that soup, you know, the private equity and all those firms, investment, like whatever, that own these apartment buildings. They are all part of that fake economy. And they are one of the direct transition points where that money goes from the real economy, somebody who needs to pay rent, into the fake economy. The landlord, the corporate landlord, who just wants to speculate on themselves and other companies that they have extremely incestuous economic relations with. So, at that point of transition, you very visibly and directly see the consequences of the sheer economic neglect that is taking place. That money leaves and it doesn't come back in the form of like improvement of property or goods or services. Literally like the Smithian cycle of like the market cycle of theoretically, oh yeah, capital is used to produce goods and services, which are then profited off of, and the profits are reinvested into making those goods and services better. This is literally a violation of that basic principle because in the pursuit of profit, goods and services cannot even be a serious consideration because they're not profitable. And that violates the law in a lot of ways, you know? I'm trying to see where was the Oh yeah, declaring intentions to make the city more friendly for bikes and pedestrians here. Let's have a listen.
This is a photo I was just given of me in high school, standing alongside a friend and a leader of our then soccer team, Asher Kelly Nacht. He was given to me by his mother, who is here with us. I did not know then what I know now,
Oh, what happened?
which is that Asher's father was killed
Oh.
while riding a bicycle by a reckless driver. And I say this because too often in our city, in our politics, we lose sight of what this
Is it funny that liberals treat their job like it's private and they don't need to interact with the public? It is oddly fitting for the spot that ideology is in right now. Yes. The liberals actually have a very, very pronounced contempt for democracy as a concept, you know, because their job, as they view it, which is more or less in line with liberal statecraft, is to keep the money and profits flowing between the like 10 or 12 companies that own everything, you know?
actually means in people's lives. We forget that this inaction has forced the very New Yorkers who have felt the brunt of this violence to traumatize themselves day after day, telling elected officials about the worst moment in their life. And today we are here not just to announce that we will complete this redesign, but also to announce that those days have to come to an end. That instead, what we must do
Redesign?
now is build for a new future. One that understands safety as something that is paramount, not as something that has to be negotiated. So to these families, to these New Yorkers, I am so sorry that we could not have done this earlier.
Okay, I want to make note of something real quick. I love that he's using this to reframe safety as a matter of like people being killed by cars rather than you get mugged by a guy in an alleyway and get shot, because that does not happen very much. Traffic fatalities are objectively, measuring by outcomes, a larger problem than street crime, you know? And I appreciate that, like, it's being reframed in this way because, like, yeah, that is what makes life less safe a lot of the times, right? So when you hear safety, think, oh, yeah, making sure cars aren't a danger to you. Statistically speaking, a certain type of group is more likely to rob you than robbers. Yes, wage theft is the accounts for the most money stolen. And not even in the Marxian sense of surplus value, surplus labor, whatever. In the literal like definition by law in America of wage theft, like employers withholding money that they are legally obligated to pay you as part of your wage or salary, retaining it for themselves anyway, again, despite it being in like your contract of employment. That is the most common type of theft. Cops too. Yes, eminent domain. Cops will just steal shit from you sometimes. Pickpockets are a real thing, but again, it's like not that common. It's something that you only have to be aware of in specific circumstances.
Years and decades ago to have saved the loved ones in your life. But I thank you for the work that you have done to ensure that we can save those New Yorkers today, tomorrow, the weeks, the months, the years to come, to ensure that this pain not be felt by others who call this same city home. Thank you so much.
Nice. Thank you, Zoran Mamdani. Very cool. Let's check out, I think More Perfect Union had some stuff. that Zoran Mamdani was doing. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is incredible. Okay, Zoran Mamdani is signing 2 executive orders today to create a junk fee task force and crack down on subscription traps. So, if you guys are familiar with how subscription services try to trap you into like paying fees and subscription money and whatever, it's a real problem in America that the Biden admin temporarily fixed and the Trump admin immediately got rid of the fix. So it's a problem again. Zoran Mamdani is being like, you know what? I'm gonna fix it again. And Lena Khan is evidently going to be part of this task force, as per. Thank you, JP Hill. Very cool. Just another one for the pile. With like everything in the United States is going to shit, but we will get to look at New York and be like, damn, that's pretty cool, right? Everywhere in America is going to go to shit except for like New York, Seattle, and like wherever else elects a bold, progressive local leader that's willing to just say, fuck you, random billionaires that live in my city. You're not going to like ruin this city, and you're not going to leave either because it's like got a massive cultural footprint in this country. Like, where are you going to live? Fucking rural upstate? Like, yeah, no shot, right? Spider-Man will be eating tonight. Oh yeah. Let me see if I can find the one here. Hold on. Zoran Mamdani apartment auction speech. Was it apartment auction? Live now from Fox? Sure. This is almost definitely going to get me copyright nuked, but I can relay what he said at least. Is there a transcript? I would love to see a transcript if it has one. No. No transcript. Oh yeah, he announced like a new office, I think, or no, he reinvigorating an existing office. Let's just look at this anyways.
Invigorated mayor's office to protect tenants of the law to account unless you have a proven, principled, and tireless fighter at the helm. Yes. That is why I am proud today to announce my friend, Sia Weaver.
For context, Sia Weaver is a New York City tenants' rights activist. She has been involved in various tenant union organizing efforts.
As the director of the newly reinvigorated mayor's office to protect tenants.
Like how he's smug like 24/7. That's true. This is the kind of smugness where you know that all the evilest people in the world are pissed at you and there is nothing they can do about it. And you just like you get to do something actually really good and like mega based, and it plays well online, it plays well offline, and the only people that will like hate you for it are the biggest losers and reptiles on planet Earth.
of standing up for tenants in our city.
Yes, she does.
As the director of Housing Justice for All, she has fought in Albany to deliver pro-tenant legislation.
Yes.
From stronger rent laws to good cause eviction to more affordable housing for all New Yorkers. We are creating the mayor's office to
She got a
protect tenants.
fucking resume,
with Sia
team.
leading the charge because this work has too long been relegated to an afterthought.
Yes.
We fight hard to win new rights for tenants across the city, only to find that those tenants are never told of those rights. Millions of tenants across this
That's true, by the way. If you're a tenant, there's no legal protection that stipulates that you have to be informed of your rights. In the United States, like when you're arrested, you have the what is it, the Miranda rights or whatever. There was a court case that where it was decided if you're being arrested for a crime, you have to be told verbally or like explicitly informed of the rights you have while in custody and like during court proceedings. That's why, you have the right to remain silent or whatever. Cops are legally obligated to say that to you if you're being arrested so that you know what rights you have and in what manner to exercise them to protect your own legal interests as a person, basically. There is no such protection for tenants. If you're like signing the contract, like sure, in a contract, it'll say what's expected of you and such as a tenant, but that's going to be in legalese for the most part, unless you're renting from a much smaller apartment building where the landlord doesn't necessarily have the means to get all legally Byzantine on you, right? But that's the only place where you're right and like your rights and obligations appear is in that contract, like verbatim. No, like nobody tells you as a tenant, they're not like has the legal obligation to tell you what your rights are as a tenant, the way that they would if you were being arrested and investigated for a crime or anything like that. That's a lot of the reason that that so much of this extra legal decline has taken place, especially in urban environments, is because people don't know their rights, don't know how to defend them, and don't know where to look to discover what those rights are. Like there are entire activist organizations, not even necessarily dedicated to changing the law, but informing people of protections that they already have as written in the law, because the law is so opaque and Byzantine in this late stage, intensely self-contradictory liberal system. Nobody knows what their rights are unless you are wealthy enough to have like a full legal team on retainer or something. I think I hate the idea of the concept of contracts. I'm definitely growing more opposed to contracts by the day, especially because the thing that contracts are designed to emulate is a social relationship in a similar manner to how debt is an economic emulation of a social relationship where both parties are obliged to do for one another. And debt sort of takes that relationship, abstracts it, and alienates you from the actual social relation that is occurring there. I think contracts occupy, legal contracts occupy a role that's not too different, where supposedly it's like, let's agree to do this together, or let's agree both that, we're going to do such and such, right? Or that you'll do this for me, I'll do this for you, or that as long as I'm here, I need to do this. I do think that like that as well is a social relationship that in some ways is fundamentally undercut by a legal and bureaucratized version of that relationship existing, right? It's like alienating you from the actual thing that you're engaging in. For example, living in an apartment. Like, yeah, I don't know. The difference I think for me is that there's more of an argument for contracts because they are enforceable if somebody should act in bad faith. Oftentimes, I think the one saving grace for contracts here is that a breach of contract doesn't necessarily mean you've like guaranteed some sort of lengthy legal battle. there are parts of a contract that both parties to the contract will often willingly overlook as long as they're both acting in good faith, right? I guess it's the thing that makes contracts like slightly more defensible is the thing that's less contractual about the contract, which is that sometimes both parties agree to ignore the contract for the sake of like smoothing over social relations or making things generally more stable in the spirit of the agreement. You know?
The city are eager for a day when their needs are no longer ignored and forgotten by those in power.
Anyways, I wanted to look at this, so let's get back to it. I think I was going to talk about rent auctions or like apartment auctions.
Today marks that new era for this city. One where we will follow through on the promises we have made and where we stand up for those who have too often been left to stand alone. I want to thank
It might be earlier that he mentions this. Either way, I think after this, I want to cap off the stream. First stream of the year. I don't want to run myself too hard.
every tenant who is joining us today. And I want to thank Sia Weaver for joining us. To introduce the new executive director of the Mayor's Office to Protect Tenants, Sia Weaver.
Very good.
Hi, everybody. Hi. I can't believe we're here. I want to thank Mayor Mamdani.
I don't remember where he makes this announcement.
It said Mayor-elect Mamdani, but then we got to
Let's get rid of the captions.
The extraordinary appointment, and I want to thank all the members of the Union of Pinnacle Tenants who came out today, and all the other tenants here in this room who are struggling for self-determination in the face of real uncertainty and fear as these buildings go through bankruptcy. And I am so happy to say with certainty that there's a mayor who is on your side. Yeah.
Okay, so this is specifically in reference to like these buildings that are enduring bankruptcy. Here, let's
Government will step in. Yeah. Mayor's office to protect tenants, housing, and get New Yorkers into housing faster. Yeah.
Okay.
Today, we are announcing 3 executive orders. The first will be to revive the Mayor's Office to Protect Tenants.
So I'm guessing this office was like defunct before. He's a busy guy. Like he's been doing some shit.
The second is to create a LIFT task force. LIFT stands for Land Inventory Fast Track, to leverage city-owned land and accelerate housing development.
This is something that makes me cream myself as a socialist urbanist. They're going to be developing affordable housing on city-owned land, which means it's almost certainly going to be like the city building the housing themselves, or like a private contractor builds it and then the city's like, thanks, that's ours now. You know?
Task force will review city-owned properties and identify sites suitable for housing development no later than July 1st of this year.
Fast tracking that shit.
The last executive order is the creation
Let me turn
of
this
a
down.
SPEED task force. SPEED standing for streamlining procedures to expedite equitable development. This task force will identify and remove bureaucratic and permitting barriers that drive up costs and slow housing construction and lease up, making it more affordable to build and easier to access housing across New York City. Let's go! These 2 task forces will be overseen by our incredible Deputy Mayor for Housing and Planning, Layla Bozar.
So those are the task forces. How many TikTok house owners have been complaining? I wouldn't know. I stopped looking at TikTok almost as soon as I started. So like several years ago. I don't know. I'm sure they're really mad. But their anger is very impotent. at this moment, which is delicious just to imagine.
Owned by Pinnacle Realty.
Here, okay.
We are here today at 85.
Okay, so I think this is the section where he mentions the bankruptcy process and what's going to come of this housing.
And homes too expensive. We are here today at 85 Clarkson Avenue. This building is owned by Pinnacle Realty.
Slumlord.
Notorious landlord whose name is all too familiar to far too many renters in New York City. Tenants like Josie Wells. Who we will hear from shortly, contend with a lack of heat, roaches, and the kind of conditions that no New Yorker should have to live through. This building and 92 others owned by the same landlord are in bankruptcy proceedings.
Jesus.
And they are set to be auctioned off to a different landlord, one who ranks number 6 on the worst landlord list in New York City.
So these buildings are going to change hands from one slumlord to another. It's just a giant incestuous circle of economics. It's the fake economy. Well, yeah, bankruptcy. We'll just hand them off to the next guy so that can boost their portfolio for a bit. Then they have to file bankruptcy, but like nobody really cares because that money's just going to circle around and it never comes back down.
In those buildings alone, there are more than 5,000 open hazardous violations and 14,000 complaints. This is an untenable situation. So today we are announcing that we will be taking action in the bankruptcy case. Stepping in to represent the interests of the city and the interests of the tenants and say, once and for all, who this government will be fighting for. I have directed my nominee for Corporation Counsel, Steve Banks, to take precedent-setting action in the bankruptcy case on behalf of the renters of this building and of the thousands of other renters across New York in similar situations. We are a creditor and interested party.
This is the shit that I was joking about. A creditor and interested party is legal and economic. It's like financial legal speak for we have a claim to ownership of this property. Right? Or something of the sort, right? When I was watching this speech for the first time in another stream chat, I was actually joking that like, haha, he's just gonna say, like, what if he just said, like, yeah, you're not selling this to another slumlord, you're selling it to the city now. That's kind of what he's saying a little bit. Like, I think that's even the only thing you could really interpret it as. If the city is a creditor and interested party, that means like, whoa, hold on. You're going to have to contend with the city at the auction. Oh, this other slumlord is buying it? No, you're not. The city's buying it. That's what he's saying.
The city is owed money that Pinnacle never paid.
Damn, you really said we're here to collect collateral on your asses. If that's true, that actually gives them a really strong legal case to seize those buildings as payment for unpaid debts to the city. And now look at that, 90 plus buildings of city-owned housing that they're almost certainly going to like refurbish and bring up to code and shit.
We'll fight for New Yorkers' interest to safe and habitable homes. In doing so, we will protect tenants already long neglected from further neglect. And we will mitigate the significant risk of displacement they currently face. For too long, bad landlords have been allowed to mistreat their tenants with impunity. That ends today.
It's so good. I think I'm comfortable to like end on that more or less. It's so good. All of this stuff is like, it's hard to believe, but there's an incredibly large amount of like socialist aligned political objectives that can be achieved entirely within a liberal framework of laws and institutions. That's kind of why the term liberal socialism exists, right? The problem is you have to be willing to pursue that project actively, right? Mamdani is like, yeah, an actual Luxembourgian, like Luxembourgist social democrat has descended upon America to deliver us from the landlords. Trillions will rejoice, or something. Like a lot of the mistreatment, it's not an accident that he used the term impunity, in describing the behavior of these landlords, because a lot of what they're doing is illegal. Just transparently, liberals don't care about the law. They're just like, yeah, if you're a landlord, if you're wealthy, if you're part of this class of people, the law just doesn't matter. You don't need to follow the law. If you make less than, 100,000 a year, then you have to follow the law. But if you have 7 digits at the end of the year and you've got a nice portfolio and you own some buildings here, we will literally ignore the law out of hand entirely just to get you like another extra zero on that portfolio. This is like him just saying, yeah, all right, you're all on notice. We're enforcing the law now. We're going to buy this housing, and it's going to be affordable housing. So you guys can't get away with charging that kind of rent anymore. Again, like I said, a lot of that is like basic social democracy shit, but it's incredible because we've actually never had this in America. Not in my lifetime or my parents' lifetime, barely within my grandparents' lifetime. I only had one, I think I had 2 of my 4 grandparents were born during the Great Depression and were alive, though very, very young, for some of FDR's New Deal programs. Literally, this is generational. Like, it has literally been generations, plural, since politicians in America have been interested in doing anything this good. Yeah, that's true. I'll do you one better. If this were an ideologically neoliberal movie, he would have something, he would do something good, objectively good, but the plot would be written in some sort of way that actually this objectively good thing is bad, actually. And then the movie would, like, the message of the movie would be, oh, well, he took it too far by doing this good thing. At the end of the day, for the ghouls that have run American cities and America by extension into the ground, any good act is too far. The idea of doing a good thing in itself is too far. That's the thing that's taking it too far. Yeah. Funnily enough, a lot of like regular ass liberals are extremely optimistic for Zoran Mamdani. They love him. The people I've seen the most like skeptical are the like tanky kind of lefties, and the people who are very obviously just feds pretending to be leftists. And FD Signifier, who is probably also, well, I don't know. I think his takes are consistently anti-effective enough for me to maybe call him a fed, but I do like the way he talks about stuff. I think he does actually care. I think he's just very like, his priorities are they're informed by trauma, like political trauma, that is at the same time very understandable, but also like really counterproductive. You know? But again, like that's the type of person that I've seen be most pessimistic about Mamdani, is like the hand-wringing leftist who can never take a W. The liberals have been pretty happy about it. All the conservatives have been frothing at the mouth. They literally, it's been like the conservatives are like, he can't keep getting away with this. The liberals and socialists are like, yes. And then there's like some hand-wringing lefties that are like, oh, well, I don't know, guys. Well, what if he turns out to be like Obama or something? By liberals, I don't mean voters. Oh yeah, politicians fucking hate him. All the like neoliberal ghouls in Congress and shit, they hate him. They hate him so much. Kathy Hochul might be the only liberal politician that's like fine with him, because she's like, hey, he's good for my career. You know, me aligning with him is pretty good for my career. So, you know, like we let it slide or something. We let good things slide if it's good for our careers. Kathy Hochul, probably. I'm going to find somebody to raid. I could feel my femme voice kind of slipping there. I defaulted back into my more masculine voice, especially in the second half of stream, but I've been improving. That's actually been really nice. I developed a much more comprehensive routine of voice exercises between last stream on December 24th and now. And I've been doing that every day. So it's nice just to give a little update on how the like transition is going. I also ran into an unfortunate problem where the store was actually out of waxing strips. I had to figure out like, how am I going to do hair removal without that? And I figured I'd just shave, because the disposable razors are really easy to come across, and it was actually like really easy to shave my arms and legs. So I was like, okay, as long as that sticks for a few days, if I can get away with shaving like once a week or something, I'm perfectly happy to just do that. It's coming along. Feels good, man. We are going to raid Hassan today. Raid Hassan. Yeah. Here we go. I'll see y'all next time, being tomorrow. I'm not sure how much effort I'm going to dedicate to like making YouTube segments or whatever. Since it's my first stream back, we'll see. But I will stream tomorrow. See ya.